Great. Hello everybody, welcome for another video, another vlog from the Heart Patient, from Heart Patient Health Systems. That's what we're here to do. We're here to give you lots of information so you can decide for yourself on the next step in your recovery. I hope you're well. It's a beautiful May day, nice and sunny, and it's about 22 degrees, yeah, and here I am in my gym, and I'm going to talk about the alternative to, if you don't believe that cholesterol gave you an heart attack, here's the alternative, and this is how it comes about. So here we go. I hope you stick around for the ride. It's really interesting, and I'm going to do my best to explain it to you, and hopefully you'll follow it. Okay, right. I'd like to start by saying that up until the Inter-Heart study that was done in 2015, and this is a body of evidence I came across again, 2015, one of the researchers who controlled part of the research on stress was Annika Rosengren from the University of Gothenburg, Sweden, and she was in the controlled body regards stress. Right, there were various other doctors. Like I said, there was a Dr. Yusuf from Montreal, Canada, but in particular Annika was looking at the stress factor involved over 30,000 people in 52 countries, I believe. This took place in, it's called Inter-Heart if you want to go find it. This took place in 2015. Now Annika has also done some other interesting research that you should possibly look into as well, to help you on your way to recover. Right, now when you talk about stress, I'm not on about physical stress here. I'm on about psychological stress. And psychological stress is if you hate your job, right? If you're worried about bills, and a lot of you just had a heart attack, you're worried about bills, you're worried about your mortgage, you're worried about your car payments, your insurance payments, your tax. I mean, the car alone gives you a lot of stress, doesn't it? Keeping a car on the road every year gives you a lot of stress. And it's psychological stress. It's there. And it pops through your mind constantly throughout the day. And then in the morning when you get a letter or a bill, ooh, who's that? You're stressed again. So what people don't realise is, right, that these days stress can be measured, right? So when people like me say stress brings upon an heart attack, I have to divulge how that happens, because stress can be measured, right? So you measure stress through the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. These are intrinsically linked with the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals axis. It's called the hpa-axis. So what we have is an autonomic nervous system. It's that fight or flight system I'm talking about, guys, right? It's the fight or flight system, right? And that's what I'm going to be talking about, and that's where the stress from here will materialise in hormones that will bring about the heart attack. Okay, so a lot of people who have heart attacks, right, accept the theory of the cholesterol theory, the hypothesis that cholesterol somehow clogged up your arteries and gave you an heart attack, built up an atheroma plaque. And the fact also thrown in, like I said, that for me is social engineering, that you ate too much butter over the years and you ate too much fat. And like I said before in previous videos, they're absolutely not linked whatsoever. So here we go with stress. The problem here is if your sympathetic nervous system, that is the stress system that gives you the fight or flight response, if your sympathetic nervous system is stuck on, sometimes you don't know about it, you will not know about it, and it happens in an instant. It's the fight or flight. You may be driving down the road and somebody cuts you up and bang, kaboom, it's there, isn't it? Kaboom. It's there to keep you alive. It's a fantastic system, but it's got a lot in common with systems that are in disease. And one of those systems that I'm going to give you an example of is acromegaly. Now, acromegaly is giantism, right? Now, to look at this, I'm going to divulge a few names to give you an idea of the people I'm talking about. One being all you people who might watch the wrestling, the WWE. Have you seen a big guy, a big wrestler, huge guy, 7 foot, called the Great Khali? I think he's Indian. He seems a genuinely lovely man. Right? Now, Great Khali, and the guy who played the bad guy in the Bond films, Richard Kiel, an American guy I believe, right? And Abraham Lincoln, right? Abraham Lincoln, although he probably wasn't diagnosed in that period of history with acromegaly, but was said to have acromegaly. What's acromegaly? Acromegaly is when you have a tumour on the pituitary gland in your head, and this sends a signal, in this case, to the adrenals to pump out too much growth hormone. So when you've got too much growth hormone, right, pumping through your body, you get a very large skull, a very large jaw, you get large feet, you get growth in the elbows, large hands, and you're generally going to be about 7 foot. Now, people with acromegaly don't live that long because of this problem, but I think the Great Khali was successfully operated on. Now, I can't speak any more of that because I don't know the surgery involved and I would hate to get it wrong, okay? But I do believe the Great Khali did have that operation in America, I believe. Okay, now that what happens when your pituitary gland is turned on to produce too much growth hormone. Now, if you can imagine a case where the pituitary gland, right, has another tumour on it, but this time is producing too much adrenocorticotropic hormone, HCTH. Adrenocorticotropic hormone is a precursor hormone. What it does, it turns the adrenals on to make cortisol, and cortisol is again a stress hormone, right? Cortisol brings about so many reactions in the body, it becomes an antagonist to insulin. So if you have high cortisol levels and you're walking around with high cortisol levels, it's an antagonist to insulin, right? More about that in a minute, right? Now, the problem with an high cortisol level with a tumour on the pituitary is it gives you Cushing's disease. Now, Cushing's disease is quite a terrible disease, and it brings on lots of side effects. Now, one of the side effects of Cushing's disease is you are about 5 times more likely to develop faster atheroma plaques. Aha, here we go. Right, is there a direct relationship to people who've had an heart attack? Because you've had an atheroma plaque, right, break, and it's infarcted, right? So Cushing's disease, people with Cushing's disease, right, are 5 times more likely to grow atheroma plaques. With that said, they're also 99% going to have type 2 diabetes, mature onset diabetes, and this is brought about by cortisol. Right, the cortisol reaction brings this about, because what cortisol does, right, cortisol brings about the muscle fibers actually get broken down into amino acids and sent to the liver, where they get broken down for glucose, and you find the amino acids from the muscles, right, are being used as glucose to put into the bloodstream, because you're in that fight or flight system again. You're in that fight or flight, right? And if that system is constantly turned on, like it is in Cushing's disease, you've got major problems. Now, there's a very similarity with people who have Cushing's disease to people who've got type 2 diabetes, right? Because they all suffer from high levels of blood clotting factors, right? And that's von Willebrand, like I spoke about before, LPA, which is comes about through LDL, the dark lord, low density lipoprotein cholesterol. There's a relationship there. They all have high levels of VLDL, very low density lipoprotein, which is another cholesterol, right, another clotting factor. Plasminogen activator inhibitor 1, LPA, and fibrinogen, they all run these clotting factors, right? You're always going to have these clotting factors going on, right, and bringing about a destruction of the system, right? Now, like I say, with people with Cushing's disease, right, this is due through a tumour on the pituitary. Now, what's interesting is people who have an atheroma plaque, an heart attack, run very, very similar systems in the fact that they don't know they're stressed out. They have a hypothalamus pituitary axis dysfunction. There's a dysfunction, right, brought about by stress. It's a stress relationship, right? They don't know they're in dysfunction, right? So what you have is, and that's why I say to you, if you've just got over a heart problem, you've just had an heart attack, and you're type 2 diabetic, you've got to look into that, because there's a deep lying cause there. There's a definite relationship with stress there, a most definite relationship with stress. The good news is, right, you can turn this system off by exercise. It resets the system. That's why I'm so big into exercise. Exercise will reset the stress system.